Hey, welcome to Real People with Stephanie Allensworth. I am Stephanie Allensworth, and I have a very special guest today. His name is Rikki Lee Travolta, a name you might recognize from just somewhere. And hey, Rikki, thanks for being here today.
Oh, Stephanie, it is so great to connect. For the viewers who don't know, Stephanie used to represent me as a screenwriter way back in the day before she became this wonderful host, hosting this award-winning program that I'm just so thrilled to be on and to be in touch with your viewers, Stephanie.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you, Rikki. Yeah, so Rikki reached out to me and connected because changed some of his information and he put out a broadcast, and I was like, oh, I got to scoop this one up. So
You've become the top journalist out there. We've had some exciting, eventful things go on. But one of the things that right now there's a big focus on autism awareness. And one of the big focuses that we wanted to share today was kind of my autistic success story. Because it is, you know, some people would call it an idiot savant situation where I have achieved really high level success in things like marketing, image, branding, and screenwriting. But on the other end, there is that quote unquote idiot element to the degree that I was not diagnosed with autism until later in life. And as a child, my own family referred to me in a derogatory term that they didn't mean derogatory. They meant it clinically. They referred to me as retarded, and but actually the slang. Um, and one of the things, every autistic person, child is different, but many of us have an almost photographic memory. And while my relatives deny that they said that or pussyfoot around it, it is just burned into my head. Especially since they'll use terms like idiot now, which avoids the R word, but still presents the same sentiment. But I'm a positive person and I like to focus on the positives. So we can talk about the sad elements, they exist. But I also am so happy to talk about the wonderful successes that are out there that are possible for those, well, really for anybody.
Mhm.
Anybody can achieve their dreams. And autism is just an example, or my autism is just an example of how you can overcome so much. And it's actually by becoming an actor by accident that I was able to become a functional person.
Well, autism wasn't really well known back in the early days of, you were born in what, 70?
I was born in 70. Yeah,
Yeah, people didn't really know that much about it back then. It seems to be something that's been getting more and more and more into the spotlight. And as more people are on the spectrum, as they call it, because there's not just one section, that is autistic. There's a whole spectrum of that. A high, what is it called? High achieving. And I do have a nephew that is a high achiever. And I would call you a high achiever as well, because as long as I've known you, I never would have known for 1 minute that you were autistic because you've always been very clear and precise to me. So it can hide, I guess. But this is your personal battle and an internal battle that I know that you want to share a little bit with. So tell us, yeah, I mean, you went a little bit with some of your successes with screenwriting and stuff, but let's start with how you discovered it.
wow. I was not diagnosed with autism until very late in life, actually within the last 2 years. And 1 in 4 men with autism and 1 in 3 women with autism are misdiagnosed with mental illness.
Mm.
And I actually lost over a decade of my life being misdiagnosed by, I went to the hospital unconscious. I was a top marketing mind. I was the head of image and branding and publicity for a company called Empire Today. I was introduced in 2007, August 18th, 2007, at Wrigley Field with the Chicago Cubs, Lou Piniella standing by. I was introduced as the quote unquote new Empire Man. I was the spokesperson who took them from being a local Chicago brand to being a national brand. And in addition to being the smiling pretty face and talking all nice and good, yeah, that's good English, talking all fancy on screen. I was on Montel Williams' show, every HGD GTV show under the sun, uh, on with Danny Bonaducci on the Playboy channel. I was on everywhere, and I had our products everywhere because I was the guy behind the scenes making the image and branding plans. And I made that company the number one flooring company in the country in less than a year. And statistically, somebody else could have done that, but they've done analysis. Statistically, it would have taken anybody else 10 to 20 years. And that's because of the autism superpower.
It
And
is
I
a
love to
superpower.
have it that way.
Hmm.
And I'm going to give you an example. We've Most of us have seen the movie Rain Man. Incredible movie, incredible Oscar-winning movie. And it's about a gentleman that Dustin Hoffman plays, Charlie, who very severely autistic, to the point that they call him things that my family called me, very derogatory terms. And yet there's a scene where he's in a restaurant, a diner, with his brother, played by Tom Cruise, and a box of toothpicks is dropped on the floor. And Charlie knows the exact number. It's like 782, some abstract number. And he knows the exact one. And in that moment, he is the smartest person, not only in that room, but probably the smartest person in the world, because
Hmm.
nobody could have figured that out. Well, I can't count toothpicks. I can barely work a cell phone, but I can make $100 million marketing plans while cooking breakfast. It's very easy for me. My mind just puts it together like a puzzle, and it puts it together at a very fast rate where I can plan out 2, 3, 5 years in advance, but at the same time adapt on the fly, which very few people can do, which is why I'm able to do that. What would take other people 10 to 20 years, I do in a year. I did the same thing with a company called Otherworld Computing. We joked about it. It was a company in a rented warehouse in a cornfield. And now it's a $583 million technology leader. Steve Jobs called me, he personally called me and told me I was a marketing genius after I introduced a product called the Axiatron Mod Book. I didn't invent it, not an inventor, but I'm a marketing, as Steve Jobs said,
Hmm.
genius. And there used to be in the Apple world, Apple is almost like a religion.
Hmm.
And there was this convention every year called Mac World. And people would fly in from all over the world. And it's where Apple would make their big introductions each year. And then on top of that, every vendor in Apple related products would introduce theirs. And in the entire history of Macworld, there's only one product that ever won all the Best of Show awards, or even one Best of Show award, that wasn't made by Apple, the Axiatron Mod Book. I'm the guy who made that happen. And that's why Steve Jobs very kindly and graciously called me and bestowed his praise, calling me a genius. And of course, also Andres Haas, the inventor, definitely called him a genius. And 3 years later, Steve came out with the actual iPad. And the interesting thing, 2007 is when I debuted this and stole all the headlines and thunder for um, the thing that got overlooked that Steve was talking about that year, the iPhone.
Oh.
I upstaged the iPhone. Of course, we didn't have the budget to make it go boom, boom, boom. The distributor was Otherworld Computing, and I guess they didn't have the financing in place and dropped the ball on the orders. It fell apart. I had left the company at that point. But you know, if you have the infrastructure behind it, like Apple does, then you can take a product like backwards engineering a mod book and creating the iPad. You have the mass production facilities to do that. Where if you're making them by hand, like Andres Haas was doing, it costs a lot. But if you have an assembly line and you're buying pieces and in bulk, cost goes down,
Of
then it's
course.
not passed on to the consumer.
Yeah.
But that's my marketing genius. And now I'm a celebrity publicist. I represent artists from Hollywood, music, sports, and Broadway. My passion project um, client, the one most dear to my heart, is Steven Adler, who people will recognize as the guy who invented the Adler swing style, which defined the sound of Guns N' Roses on Appetite for Destruction. He's the drummer, or was the drummer
Huh.
when they came out with Appetite for Destruction. And he's actually the drummer and co-writer of 90% of all Guns N' Roses hits. Now, Steven, he hates being called
Mhm.
Steve. Steven moved along, and he has this wonderful solo band. And here's why he's my passion project. I cut my teeth in music way back. I was in college. I worked on Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation.
You did. Huh.
Later, yeah. And I've worked on everything from blues to Broadway. I worked with Robert Cray, got Michael Damian on Broadway as Joseph, the soap opera star from Young and the Restless. But worked with all these artists. Stephen, and I'm going to name all the guys in the band because they're very dear to my heart. Stephen
Okay.
Adler, 100 best drummers of all time per Rolling Stone magazine, Grammy Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the best guy you'll ever meet, the amazing singer. We call him the future voice of rock and roll, Ari Kamen. And it's not just me saying that. Sebastian Bach of Skid Row fame has said that. Members of Kiss have said that. Guys from Extreme have said that. He's just amazing. Michael Thomas, one of the elite
Mm.
guitarists of all time in heavy metal or any other genre. And he's done tracks with Snoop Dogg, who, wow. But he was with Faster Pussycat, just all these great bands. I would put him up there with Slash or Nuno Bettencourt, um, Steve Vai. I would put him in that category. And Alistair James, my man AJ,
Mm.
rhythm guitar, who not only is fantastic on rhythm guitar, but he's also one of the top engineers in the country. He engineered Hollywood Vampires albums with Johnny Depp and Alice Cooper and
Yeah.
Bill Cameron.
Huh.
And then he produces my guys over at Quiet Riot, Alex Grassi, Rudy Sarzo, and just an amazing producer. And then we got Kristen Sturba on bass, and he's a perfect bass player, right? We got so many stars. Not everybody has to be in the limelight all the time. Christian just blends right in. And then we have tour manager, Steve Sprite. Not a lot of people are going to mention the tour manager as among the band, but here's why. Because they also consider their celebrity publicist, Rikki Lee Travolta, one of the band. They got all of us together backstage and they said, hey, you're one of the band. And all these famous artists that I've worked with and helped establish their careers, nobody had ever done that. In fact, I was the autistic kid in high school who got tricked and made fun of. I was the laughing stock. I didn't have friends. I did not have friends. And
But you didn't know you had autism in high school. What made you think that that was why were they picking on you if you didn't really know at the
well, because
time?
it's autism is just a word,
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know. I
Well.
still had all the symptoms. And one of those things is that I'm inherently trusting.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
can't help but trust. So if the jocks said, "Hey, go ask that girl out. She really likes you," and of course she didn't, I was the one who was made a fool of. I got into legal trouble. I never went to jail or anything, but I broke rules, not meaning to break rules, but because
Yeah.
I got tricked,
Yeah.
not only by the
Well,
jocks.
that
Yeah.
stupid high school kids. I mean, right now, thank God we're not in high school right now. Look what's going on out there, it's becoming a dangerous place. And I don't know if we can, if they all have autism or not, but something's going on. Something's in the water. I tell you what, it's crazy. But let's
Oh,
get back into a little more about your story with autism because I think, we want to kind of focus on that. I mean, all that's very super interesting, and I think you've got a massive amount of backing and projects that are going to take you to the moon. So, but the autism part of it, I think, because it's got a special place in my heart because of my nephew. And my nephew is high achieving. He's got his, he's definitely autistic, but he's very trusting and he's very gentle and kind and and can hold a job. But probably not getting married and having kids. He's I hate to say that on camera, but I think that's the reality of it. But he's a gentle giant, and I think people have such a stereotype or a taboo about autism, and it is a slag if somebody calls you autistic. It's like, what are you autistic? And people can be so mean, it's ridiculous. So it's a struggle if with that kind of life, and a struggle when, especially if you don't even know that that's what's going on, right? Um, uh,
well, I'll jump in there and I'll say that I made a very conscious decision to be public that I am disabled. Previously, I was misdiagnosed as schizophrenic, and it wasn't. I was autistic,
oh
and
wow,
that's how I lost all those years. Was if you give that kind of medicine to somebody who doesn't need it, it's like giving chemotherapy medicine to somebody without cancer. But
yeah,
again, focusing on the positives, whether it was misdiagnosed with that disability or the actual disability of autism, I am disabled. And I made a very conscious decision to be public about it. Because as you very politely pointed out earlier, I'm eloquent. I can speak with eloquence. I have a twinkle in my eye. And there are those who can't even speak.
true.
I am the voice of the voiceless. And that subjects me to a lot of abuse. There was an awful situation that we'll just touch on that I would myself and my staff were severely abused at an Airbnb property. And that's something that we'll get into on another day. This is a focus on positive things.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing the positives about autism, that there are the autism superpowers. But
Hmm.
we have to acknowledge that with it comes need for help. I need help working a cell phone. I do, and that's a little bit embarrassing. My son, when he moved away, my wonderful son Tino, he always programmed my phone up until he was like 10. I mean, a little kid was doing it, and I couldn't do it. And that is just a way to learn something great about possibilities. I cited a number of business successes that I've had with other world computing, creating them into a technology giant, Empire Today, making them the number one brand in flooring. I didn't do it alone. It wasn't me just by myself. I had a team. And that is the key to all of my success. Whether it's programming a phone with the teamwork of my son Tino, or whether it's making a company. I took Empire Today from $40 million dollars a year to $700 million dollars a year for venture capitalist David Lenowitz. I didn't do that alone. I masterminded it. I puppet mastered it, but it was a team. Every success.
Are you the one that was behind the phone number that I can't get out of my head?
You know what? I wasn't, but I can tell you wonderful stories about it. The original Empire man, Lynn
Huh.
Aldrin, he uh, he had no affiliation with the company whatsoever. He wrote the script for the original ads.
Oh,
And the actors who showed up to do it couldn't remember the lines. They were awful. They had already booked the studio time, had to do the commercial. He wrote it, so he did the commercials, and lo and behold, becomes the original Empire Man, which is why he was so stiff on camera. He had no inclination of being a spokesperson. But the interesting thing is, he wrote that jingle, and he is two of the voices on the recording of that jingle. He
mm.
his passion was barbershop quartet.
Oh,
So
nice.
when I was doing the promotions for Empire Today, I had to go out and do the national television appearances, but Lynn still had to do the Chicago one. And it was detrimental to have him booked to talk on a talk show because he'd get all the facts wrong because he didn't know anything about the company. So I would book him with his barbershop quartet and they would sing and then I would talk and get
Oh,
the best of both worlds,
uh,
teamwork, all
right.
stemming back to autism that I require teamwork just to function. And so I extend that out into the business world. You learn from what you got. If you can't
Right.
hide it, flaunt it.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Uh, are you involved with any charities or anything at this time regarding autism and
I'm not
on the
directly
spectrum?
involved with any charities. We did have that fiasco that I told you about with the
Yeah,
air.
yeah.
So we do have a GoFundMe going on for that, but that's more for myself and the
Right,
staff,
right.
which is a very humbling situation to be in. Very humbling. I have campaigned and collected for charities all my adult life. And so to be on the other end of that is very humbling. And I thank people so much for the love and the caring because it's a difficult position to be in.
Oh
But
yeah.
I do volunteer. I volunteer for libraries. I volunteer with different autism organizations. I don't want to name any specifically
Okay.
because I couldn't name all of them.
Hmm.
And it would be unfair to name just a few. And not all of the prominent are the ones where the money goes to the best use.
Oh yeah.
And so I do ask, I encourage people to donate. I encourage people to donate financially if that's what you're able to do, but also of your time and of your abilities, your profession. If you're a publicist, help them publicize.
Mm.
If you're a therapist, you know what? Everybody needs therapists. Autism people struggle a lot too.
Yeah.
There's always ways to help, even if you're not in the financial situation to do.
Hmm.
But research where the money is going, because there are very prominent organizations that actually pocket a lot of the money. And I don't say
That's
that
right.
in a mean way.
Yeah.
They go to expenses that don't get to the actual client.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you because there's a whole lot of those situations that are yeah, out
And you know
there
what
being exposed right now.
one charity that is separate than autism that I am a big proponent of has to do with Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
Alzheimer's has affected um, the family of um, one of the most beautiful and wonderful souls that I've ever known. And I don't have the greatest uh, relatives. And so I have a tendency to cling to the families of the girls I get involved.
Hmm.
And I was honored to be a part, be included in a family that I watched a woman, um, Susan. I don't want to embarrass my friends by giving her last name, but um, Susan was a bulldozer, and I didn't get to meet her as that. I met her as a vegetable lying on a bed.
Oh.
I watched her die, literally, in the room when it happened. But for the year leading up to that, every week, my girlfriend and I would go and give respite to her dad, Susan's husband,
Mhm.
and I fell in love with that man because oh, he is an old crass coot, old country boy, and maybe even a little racist, which like hurts my soul. He has a good heart. He has a good heart, and he just sat by his wife's bed every day, all day. He would hold her hand.
Oh, geez. Well, don't cry because if somebody starts crying, I start crying. So, yeah, stop it.
He,
But I get it. I've been there too. I've It's the hardest
And I
thing
got to
ever
be
to
the
watch
rock.
somebody
I got to be the rock
completely
because
diminish.
I didn't know Susan before that.
Hmm.
I only knew her as the best. So it still destroyed my heart being in the room. But I didn't have that direct emotional contact of having grown up with her.
Yeah.
And so things work in a way. And so I was able to be the rock, able to write the eulogy, able to, or help with the eulogy. I don't want to take credit, but um, so Alzheimer's is something that's very important to me that I still do a lot of work to help and campaign.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
was,
Alzheimer's and dementia are horrible.
yeah.
It,
And
they're,
also it's a terrible label, just like mental illness is a terrible label, autism is a terrible label. Anything that is done in a derogatory term
mm,
it's just awful. And that's why I don't like labels. I like words like special. We don't need special needs. Why not just special?
oh,
Celebrate the good. These people who overcome struggles are heroes.
oh yeah.
Superheroes are, it doesn't have to be just somebody in a costume, in a comic book. And I love comic books. And I was up for Thor. I had long, beautiful blonde hair. And I would have loved to have done that. Chris Helmsworth did a much better job than I would. But, I would have loved to have played that kind of superhero. But I'm very good at acknowledging the real superheroes in life, and that is anybody who overcomes any kind of challenge. Because it's not about the result, it's just about giving your all every day and trying. So if it's somebody with Alzheimer's writing themselves notes so they get through the day and keep a great job, then great. If it's somebody with autism who gets bullied but gets back up, gets
Mm,
their head out of the toilet after getting dunked by the jocks and goes to class and gets the 4.0 in grad school, whatever gets you through, that is a hero. People who help, who give financially to charities, that is a hero. People who have good in their heart, that is a superhero.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just to add some levity here, my husband
Sorry, I can get heavy.
Yeah, you can get heavy, that's for sure. But my husband bought me a t-shirt for Christmas one year that said, "My superpower is that I'm left-handed." Oh, no, it said I'm left-handed. What's your superpower? Because
There you go.
a lot of people are called clumsy. The left-handed people, they write funny. They say we die early because we're so damn clumsy. And I don't I don't see any of that myself. The trying to use a right-handed scissor, though, that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah,
But you teach yourself how to use your right hand. I mean, that's just what you do when you're left-handed.
you know,
So
the whole way that I
it's a
was
little
able to learn
challenge, but.
the whole way that I was able to learn to function in the world was I was severely autistic. They were going to institutionalize me as a kid, but I accidentally got cast as Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol, and then learned to act along the way. And I cite that because later in life, I played a character named Lloyd Dallas in a show called Noises Off. And I stepped into the role with like a week to go, the week before it was going to open, because that's kind of my MO. Is I was the guy that you flew in to take over at the last minute, because I might not get the lines word for word, but I can see a show once, read the script, and go on. And
That's a
so
super talent right there.
there you go. It doesn't work well with musicals because I can't memorize the line, the music that fast.
They pretty
And
much
yet I
have
would
to
go
join the
for
chorus.
but for Lloyd, I had to develop a character like in no time. And so one of the ways that I would do that is key in on one or two characteristics. And so for Lloyd, I was like, okay, he's this creative director. He's a director. He's creative. A lot of left-handed people are creative. I'm going to make him left-handed. So I had to teach myself how to be left-handed, and I did. And I actually won an award for that part. But it was all just based on the left-handed thing, which you brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand. I actually was it was a photo shoot for one of the universities around here, and I was playing a teacher in the photo shoot, and the idea was to stand in front of the class and like I'm lecturing and writing on the chalkboard, and I started telling them about being left-handed, why people crook their hands. It's because you end up dragging your hand across. And I'm like, the reason I'm not good at writing on a chalkboard is because if I put my hand down, I will erase the chalk. And,
Exactly.
and they thought that was great. And the audience was actually, they're pretend students, but they were engaged, because if you're not left-handed, you don't really understand those nuances, right? Much like with autism, being on the spectrum, people don't always recognize the challenges. So it's
Mhm.
great to share and great to get this stuff out and not put any kind of heavy burden on the title. Give it a superpower. Make that t-shirt.
Exactly. That's what I should do. I should start marketing a t-shirt.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that- I'm now going to have to give you a commission, Stephanie.
Okay, I'll take it.
And I would do that because I'm all about honorability and making sure people get their due. Yeah, it can be a superpower. And
And it
to go
is.
back
I
to go
see
back
people
to
do incredible things, you
oh
know?
yeah,
Uh,
Mozart. Mozart was, I mean, he's not here to be officially diagnosed, but every expert who's looked at the records and things agrees that Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, was autistic. And on top of that, studies have shown that certain pieces of Mozart's music actually have a beneficial effect on the way autistic people think.
Oh, well,
And
music, the music scales and they're healing, music has healing powers, but I could get into the whole, it has to be tuned correctly because
oh yeah,
if the, 432 versus 440, I think it is, for the A. Um, so they become
and
very, very healing.
I'll tell you something about music. It actually really, really is a great effect on my life. Not just because I love working in the industry, but in day to day, I can control my mood with music. I can be creative all day long. If I'm in a bad mood, I know exactly what song to put on or what song list to put on to make me happy. And it sometimes it correlates to a memory of when I heard that song. A lot of times it's the tempo and the beat.
Yeah.
Very rarely is it the lyrics, interesting enough. There's only very few songs that I key in on the lyrics, and those are storytellers. People like Harry Chapin,
Mm,
Joshua Cadden, where they tell stories,
yeah.
Billy Joel, Elton John. Um, but there's one kind of music that I really struggle with. And from the position of an artist, I can look at the music and appreciate the beauty of it, the intelligence of it. But as a listener who is autistic, jazz, very hard for me
I was gonna
because,
I was gonna say it. I was gonna
yeah,
say it. Yeah.
it's all about being on the beat. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
In my case, autism is a binary mindset, yes and no,
Off
right
and
and
on,
wrong.
right? Off and on. Yeah.
And so jazz breaks the rules. It
Hmm.
takes the note and goes off the beat or bends the note. And I appreciate it aesthetically. I appreciate why it's being done. I appreciate that it's beautiful to other people. But in my brain, it causes a little bit of a short circuit, which is another interesting thing about autism, at least in my case. And I don't mean to speak for the community, because as you said, a lot of different levels,
Hmm.
a lot of different variations. So in my case, food, I either love it, like addicted to it, terrible sweet tooth,
Hmm.
or hate it. So a lot of people don't like broccoli or don't like cauliflower. To me, it tastes like garbage. Like it's painful to eat. And yet anything good is euphoric.
Mm.
It's that yes, no, right, wrong. to the extreme degree. And it's
I
not
think
that
I
way.
have that too.
Yeah. But yeah, I have my little routine. I have to have rainbow sherbet at night.
Oh,
That's like how I go to bed.
rainbow sherbet. I always
Yeah.
loved orange sherbet. Orange sherbet is
Most
like,
people
it
do.
reminds me of the old push-ups, the orange
Yes.
sherbet and with the stick and you push it up. Yeah, I love those things. Anything that
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of childhood sometimes. Uh,
Yeah.
of the good days, when that were not so complicated.
Yes. Yes. But
Uh,
again, we can always find the good to focus on,
mhm.
but don't ignore the bad, right? I mean, we got some bad things going on,
Oh yeah.
right? But if we just complain about it, then we're just complaining and crying. If we acknowledge that there's problems and say, oh, we got problems with the economy. Oh, we got problems with tariffs, whatever it is. If we focus on it and then figure out solutions, how
Hmm.
do we change whatever the problem is? Because it shouldn't be about political party. It shouldn't be anything. It should be about America, Americans, and supporting each other and making
Hmm.
this country great like it was founded. And
Exactly.
we're not different parties. We're not. We're all Americans,
Hmm.
and we should all be focused on the greatness of America. And that's what I go out and do every day. And Stephanie, I know you're the same way. I know you love everybody, right? And you just want the best, which is focusing on solutions.
I am solutions oriented. Absolutely, I am. I learned a long time ago, if you're going to go in with a problem, you better bring a solution as well, right?
Exactly.
Don't go in
And
and complain about a problem if you don't have a solution for it. It's like, oh, no, somebody else has to fix it. It's like, why don't you fix it if you know what the problem is? You know?
exactly. If you're so smart,
Yeah.
then go fix it.
Well, I
And
am so smart. So here's three options for you. I have.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
somebody once said that I should run for president. And I said, you know what? That's not the best use of my talent because I don't even want to be the president of my own company. I want to be the creative guy. Now, would I
Yeah.
do it if it was the best thing for the country? Sure, I would because I love my country. But, we all need to focus on what our talents are. And my talent is smiling and being creative. And if I was sitting behind a desk signing things, that'd be kind of a waste of that in my
That's
mind.
not creative, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's a tough road to hoe for anyone, right? I couldn't see it. I mean, I don't know how anybody works in government, and I don't want to get too deep into government, but
oh,
I just
no,
don't
no,
know
no.
how
We
it's
don't need
like,
to go
when
into
do you all
politics.
sleep? Do you ever get to sleep?
Well, and I'll tell you how it works. And we'll use this to steer back into more fun territory.
Okay,
It
good.
works by trusting the experts. Anybody who thinks they know everything is not going to do a great job because they don't. If you trust the experts, then that's how you do great. Because when I go in and I restructure a business, I don't go in and tell the tech department what to do because I can't work a darn computer very well. I find the people in the tech department who know what they're talking about. And those are the experts I'm going to listen to. And same thing with customer service. Same thing, Empire Today. I would not know how to install a carpet. No idea. I ran a magazine called Cabinet Maker Magazine. And I once tried to build some shelves and they were crooked and awful. I'm not, yeah, I hired the expert to do that. My expertise was writing about it. And I did that brilliantly. And to get the information I needed, I trusted the experts. I interviewed the guys who knew what they were doing.
Mhm. Very good. Yeah, you have to surround yourself with the people that know what to do. That's what a cabinet is. You can't just say I can do it all, even though there's a lot of times when I think I can do it all, and I can actually do quite a bit. I am not just a good writer and speaker and lovely show host, but I'm very mechanical and electrical. I can fix things with these little hands right here.
And
Uh,
I bet you can.
uh,
But here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Economically, if you did it all yourself, that's not the best use of your time
that's
because you can hire somebody to do your cooking for you if you don't want to spend the time in the kitchen. Doesn't mean you can't cook, but it
yeah.
means that you could be earning $10,000 writing something and earning nothing cooking.
Yeah.
Or it's all about, just because you can't do it doesn't mean that you have to do it all. Because one person businesses
Mhm.
are not usually economic mega stories. It's
Well,
when you bring on other people.
yeah, a one person business can't be a do all thing. Unless it's a one-on-one, like a CPA or, something like that. That's a one person business, an independent contractor that's coming in to do one job and do it well and then get out. That's kind of where I'm rolling right now.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I just hear wonderful things about what you're doing, not only on camera, but about everything that you're doing there. In just you're in the land of Prince, uh,
I am in
you
the
know,
land of prince.
and, and where my man Jesse the Body Ventura came from,
Oh yeah.
and I ended up playing a wrestling character in a movie because I still do cameo roles from time to time. And so I took the role because they let me kind of rework it and make it my own. And I turned the character into, we renamed him Bald Man Macchiato because I'm bald. And he was a cross between Macho Man Randy Savage, who was one hero of mine, and Jesse the Body Ventura, who is
Oh,
another hero of mine. And he was my character, Bald Man Macchiato, was a former wrestling champion who was then a commentator, which is something that both Macho Man and Jesse had in common, and it
mm.
was the most fun I've ever had in a role. And I don't know, it's out there on the internet somewhere. I should put it on my Facebook or something.
Yeah.
But it was just so fun, and it was a dream come true
Oh, how
because I
fun.
grew
Yeah.
up, yeah, I grew up idolizing wrestlers.
Oh,
They were superheroes. They
my
were bigger than life.
brother. My brother
Oh,
used
really?
to, my brother used to imitate the Crusher all the time. He'd
Okay.
find your feet in cement boots. If you don't know what I'm saying, it's just so growly. My grandmother, would watch All-Star Wrestling here in Minneapolis, and she'd be like, "Throw him out of the ring, throw him out of the ring on his bald head." And I think that one was, oh, gosh, what was his name again? Oh, I can't remember, but yeah, back in the day of the AWA, kind of
Yeah,
where it all started from, springboarded from there.
yes.
Anyway, yeah, gosh, boy, we certainly divert, don't we? Take a lot of left and right turns.
Well, that excuse me. That is the fun and joy that you get with Rikki Lee Travolta. You never know where I'm going to go, but it's always fun.
Yeah, yeah, I know a little bit of everything, just enough to make me dangerous.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But Macho Man, I was actually supposed to be. I met him once. I was a kid. Well, I think I was 20. And I met him at a vitamin store. He was doing an appearance, and I waited in line with all these little kids to have my picture taken. But then years later, gosh, I think as I was telling the viewers, Stephanie was a longtime literary agent and represented me as a screenwriter. And during that time, I was going to be on Surreal Life, me and Macho Man. And one of the scripts that Stephanie represented was called Champion of the People,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was about a mayor who get a professional wrestler who gets elected mayor of a small town. And it was actually going to be made with Bret the Hitman Hart playing Adonis Truth, was the wrestler, and Corey Feldman was signed on to play the chief of staff. It was Spin City, the Michael J. Fox series where he is deputy mayor or the assistant to the deputy mayor. Is Spin City meets WWE. So it's
Yeah.
Corey Feldman, the perfect one to be the Michael J. Fox character, young, comical, and Corey gets overlooked a lot. He's
Mm.
actually a wonderful actor. If I was doing his image and publicity, I might give him different advice than he's followed, um, because he's had a lot of hardship in life. If you've
Yeah,
read
I've
his
heard his
books on
story.
pornography,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't
Both
make
of
him.
the Coreys did,
Yeah.
had a hard time.
Oh, and Corey Haim. Oh, Just a tragic story, just tragic. And that all ties into Michael Damian, who I
Mm.
helped get on Broadway in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. One of the other things we did was we got him to re-record Rock On, which became his number one hit. And the way we made it a number one hit was not only was it strategically picked as a remake that had just the right era, a level of notoriety without being so known as one artist's song that it wouldn't be Michael's. So there's a way to pick that. Like with Quiet Riot, Come On, Feel the Noise, the first number one
Mm.
metal song to make the first metal song to make it to number one on the Billboard charts was a remake. And
Mm.
it was very strategically picked.
Yeah.
Same thing with Rock On for Michael Damian. And part of making it a hit, it's all puzzle. Part of
Yeah.
making it a hit, we put it on the soundtrack to Dream a Little Dream, a Corey and Corey movie back when they were the Corey and Corey Dream Team teen guys.
Mhm.
Anything we put on that soundtrack was going to be a hit. It's all strategic.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that script now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I had forgot about it. You know how many scripts I've read?
Oh
Oh
boy.
my gosh.
Yeah.
For me to pitch a script, I have to love it. And there's a lot of stuff I couldn't get past page two. So if I can't get past page two, it ain't gone anywhere.
And that's the way the industry works. I mean, the way that I ended up working with Michael Dorn on, we had a project called Heroes that was later changed to Hero Before Dawn. It had a million titles.
Mm.
But Michael Dorn from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Star Trek DS9. I think he's been on like every Star Trek. He's on Picard now. He played Worf, the Klingon. And I'd seen an interview where he wanted to direct. He's like, I can play any character I want. I have airplanes.
Mm.
What I want to do is direct, and no one will give me a chance. And I was a protege of Jerry Goldman, who was the chief financial officer at Paramount Studios. And I talked to Jerry, and he agreed that I got a hold of Michael. And I said, look, I wrote the script. I actually wrote the character of Franco in means nothing to your viewers, but that was the name of the character. I wrote this with you in mind. But here's the thing. I heard that you want to direct. And I see by the way that you perform, I see how you move on camera. You know where to look, you know where to stand. You understand it. I can recognize that. I don't want to pitch you on starring in this. You hear that every day. I want to pitch you on directing. And in 20 minutes, with him and not reading the script, he signed on to direct and star. And I do things different. That's the key to my success. I find my own way. So, like you were saying, you read 1, 2 pages of a script and it's out the door in an agent's office. If I submitted that to his agent, an intern would have read it. And then if they liked it, a sub agent would have read it. And then if they liked it, an agent would have read it. And it would have taken years to get up the ladder.
Some
I
things
found a new
take
way to do it.
forever.
Yeah.
Even Moneyball, the one that had, everybody's like, oh, well, this is so great. And it came like, you had no idea that script had been going around and he had been trying to get that thing made for 10 years.
And
10
that's
years.
not
And I'm going to have to
unusual.
ask you to turn that pop can around, please, because
Oh, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
going
I'm
to
so
have to
sorry.
crop it out
Oh,
otherwise.
oh, I'm so sorry. I just drink soda all the time. I do endorse it. I do endorse brands, and soda is not one of them. I have
Yeah.
not endorsed a specific soda. That was not on purpose. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, I saw it all of a sudden pop up in there, and I'm like, I'm going to have to crop that out.
Oh, bad Rikki Lee,
No,
bad
that's
Rikki Lee.
okay. I can fix it in post. Yeah. Uh, where were we before that?
I do want to jump back to how I got my start in acting because it relates to how I'm able to be this articulate person with you.
Mhm.
Because as a child, I would have these awful outbreaks. I didn't know how to do expressions. I was going to be institutionalized. That's how severe my autism was, or the way it played out in society.
Mhm.
And my mother desperately wanted my sister to be an actress, and we were in Portland, Oregon. And in every city, or every big town, there's that biggest theater. In Chicago, where I most recently was from, It was called The Goodman. And the biggest show of the year was A Christmas Carol. And everybody has to have a ticket. So in Portland, Oregon, they were doing A Christmas Carol every year. And this year was going to be a super special production. And Paul Derumis, the director of the Portland Civic Theater, decided he was going to direct it that year. And so they were going to cast the kids in A Christmas Carol out of the classes. I wasn't in class. I couldn't be left alone. My mother had to take me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting there playing in the lobby. And Tiny Tim is not a character, it's a named character. Everybody knows Tiny Tim,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't really talk. He has two lines. One of them is God bless us everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the other. I think it's like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
and and so Paul saw me. The only requirement that you had to be was cute.
Mm.
And thank God I was
And
cute
have a
because,
limp.
yeah, well, that was my audition. I didn't know what an audition was. I didn't know what a play was. I didn't even, I, I was barely functional. But he asked me, can you do a limp? And I had just seen the Mel Brooks movie, Young Frankenstein, which is, of course, a comedy version of Frankenstein, the old way only Mel Brooks
And
can
a
do it.
classic. And a classic.
And not only a classic on stage, but then on film, but now it's a musical. It's a classic musical too. And so I have to do a limp. I just seen Young Frankenstein. I did Igor's limp, the Igor comedy, and it had to be like the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. I couldn't act in life, and here I am doing this comedy limp. Thank God for cuteness because I got cast and it got taped for television. I was terrible, just the worst thing you've ever seen.
Well,
But you don't have,
obviously you did it. So
you
did they
don't have
pull
to
you at all?
you don't have to be good to be famous. And
Oh
I
no,
was
you
like,
certainly don't. That
oh, I could
I've
name some
seen
names, but
plenty.
I'm not going
I've
to do
seen
that.
plenty of people that I thought, how in the world? Oh, somebody's got money. It's all it takes sometimes.
So I was this awful, awful actor. I mean, I couldn't even function in society, but I was getting cast in everything because I'm this little kid. And so I was around great actors and I would study them. And then I'd go home and look in the mirror and I would practice. This is how you look angry because I didn't know how do you look angry. I didn't know when to smile. I didn't know how to laugh. Even my sneeze. I learned my sneeze because there was an actor named David Beetham Goes, who I just thought was a really cool stage actor I worked with. And he had this really loud sneeze that I thought was so macho. And I was like, I want to sneeze like that. To this day, I sneeze like David Beetham Gomes because I mimicked it. And that's a lot of autism is mimicking. I can
Yeah.
do any accent. And I can't speak a language. I studied Spanish forever, can't speak two words of it, but I can do any accent because I can mimic it. But it's by going home and practicing emotions and things in the mirror that I learned how to blend into society. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have this articulate, fun dude hanging out with you. I'd be in the institution, drugged up and drooling in the corner, and that's a sad truth. But that is the inspirational thing that if we look at how to reach people rather than throw them away,
Exactly.
everybody has potential. Everybody has.
That was beautiful right there. Yeah. That's the key. That's the key to
Yeah,
it all, you know?
yeah.
Well,
And
my friend, we have been talking for nearly an hour. Uh,
oh, I do that. I told you I would do that. I told you I will
but
ramble,
it's
ramble, ramble.
perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. But we should probably wrap it up here and then plan on a second piece because I would like to keep investigating, your world of autism and then talk about some of the things, the other challenges you've been going through. And, not to talk about them here, but just to, touch on them and with autism, I'm sure that every little thing that happens like this that's out of sorts amplifies 1,000 times. So, with that, I want to thank you for being here on my show and being such a big smile and a fun personality and having so much to talk about and so much to say. I got to have you back and talk some more, okay?
Stephanie, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And again, you did mention that we do have this GoFundMe going on for some of the tragedies that had happened to myself and the staff of Entertainability Group, and relating to our celebrity clients like Stephen Adler, guys in Quiet Riot, and our online publication Life and Times. And if anyone does want to contribute, it's very humbling to have to ask for help, but we're focused on good. And anything that doesn't go to myself or the staff, we're going to turn around and donate back to people who are in need, because that's what we're focused on. Just like Gene Roddenberry
Yeah.
uh, believed in when he created Star Trek, not a society based on money and economy, but a society based on an economy of supporting each other and believing in each other and helping each other. And that's really goes back to our founding forefathers of brotherly love. And so, Stephanie, I will look forward to our next session together. And I
And
thank the viewers so much for tuning in.
oh, you're so welcome. And I'm just going to say, in the description below, we will be putting in the link to the GoFundMe page so people will have access to it. And I'll have the code so you can just scan it, the QR code, so they can scan it and make it easier for people. And then we'll put a little bit of your story in the description as well. So thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody that tunes in to see this. Thanks for keeping it real with real people. Bye now. Thanks a lot.